We preview the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. Chris Marler from Saturday Down South joins us, and we update you on all the happenings on Thanksgiving in the sports world. Welcome to the Turkey Day edition of Crane & Company. Hey, just a quick reminder that the best deal of the year is here with 50% off new Daily Wire Plus annual memberships. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe right now to join. Hop on it. Now, obviously, the Ole Miss Rebels and the Mississippi State Bulldogs are trending in different directions. Mississippi State let former coach now, Zach Arnett, who took over for our good friend and the late Mike Leach, may he rest in peace. They let him go here recently. I'm sure he'll find a job as a DC somewhere big. I don't know, like maybe LSU. But this is a huge game for Ole Miss to get to the 10-win mark, something that Lane's been hearing about for a long time, a chance for him to really go from the duplex into the suburbs as we move to a divisionless SEC and add Texas and Oklahoma. But a big setback could be on the horizon as they go to Starkville to play a team with nothing to lose. Nobody expects them to win, so we're going to dive into it, and we want to know what you think. I'm going to bring in my co-host, former Michigan quarterback. They got a big one this weekend. We talked about that one. Make sure you check out the preview prediction to bet on that. Then my brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crane. We all got Eastern State Colorado.
Don't ever say those names in front of me.
All right, David, I want to start here with the Egg Bowl. You know, we heard Jackson Dart's a little bit beat up.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to play. We know the situation at Mississippi State. Mike Wright's been playing. This is a game where if you are an Ole Miss fan, right, you couldn't be in a better situation when you look at how your program's doing compared to where your rival is. I don't know about you guys, but I like to watch my rival team suffer. I want them to be in the worst situation possible outside of tragic stuff, obviously. But there's also that little bit of nervousness. And I'm going to ask Chris Marler. Auburn's in a way different situation than Mississippi State is, but nobody's expecting Auburn to win. But there's that little bit of nervousness to this team has nothing to lose. They could come out, go as deep as they want in the playbook, fake punts, go for fourth down, surprise onside kick every time. Because Greg Knox, say what you want about him, as the interim coach, is 2-0, but you got to be leaning Lane here, right?
Yeah, this is just another one of those cool college football rivalries that we get, and it's an interesting one for me. I spent every Christmas in Mississippi at my grandparents' house, and everybody in the family over there was Ole Miss fans. No one really ever pulled for Mississippi State. And then when it got time for me to play college football, Mississippi State was my one SEC offer with Sylvester Croom and Shane Beamer on that coaching staff. So I've always kept up with the Egg Bowl and this rivalry from the outside. Obviously, you know, it's just last year with the passing of Mike Leach, like all of us loved him, but like college football loved that man, and for good reason too, right? Like he was just a staple of college football. He gave so much to the game, and it was just tragic what happened there. Zach Arnett, you know, fills in for him. Like you said a couple of weeks ago, that wasn't Mississippi State's guy, right? Like it was a very unfortunate situation. Had less than a year there before he was fired. But Lane Kiffin on the other side of this thing, you know, I've been really tough on Lane Kiffin just because I felt like he's one of those coaches that has never fully maximized his potential, right? Like his name always gets brought up when we talk about the greatest offensive minds in the game of football. And you look at his tenure with SC and the Raiders and Tennessee, and it's just, you know, there's always something that pops up that's more about the drama than actually about the season. Even last year, a year ago when we were talking about the Egg Bowl a year ago, is he going to go take the head coaching job at Auburn? Is that forming a distraction before you play your biggest rival? They ended up losing that game. And this year, here they sit 9-2. Lane Kiffin is more focused than I've ever seen him. You know, obviously they have the skill set to be able to win big football games with what Jackson Dart has done, and Quinshon Judkins, I think, is one of the best running backs in the country. Lane Kiffin paid special attention when he was recruiting that kid to make sure that he got him to come play for him. They sit here 9-2. You're going to play your biggest rival on Thanksgiving Day with a chance to win 10 games at Ole Miss. That's significant. Then you could go with whatever bowl matchup you get, potentially win 11 games. Like, this is the most focus that I've seen Lane Kiffin. I'm really proud of this team, even though, you know, we saw some of these stories throughout the season about players suing for $40 million and recording private conversations. They didn't let it faze them at all. And if you can look back and say, we won 11 games at Ole Miss and our only 2 losses are on the road at Alabama and at Georgia, That's a pretty good season.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. Those are pretty two. Those are two. If there's ever such thing as a good loss, going to Bama and to Georgia, those are about as good as the losses as you could possibly have. Lane, a couple people said Lane Kiffin to A&M. He's not going to A&M. I don't think so. But there's a chance here. Ole Miss could maybe sneak into a New Year's Six Bowl with some of the teams that are playing each other. You see Ohio State, Michigan obviously playing each other. You got Washington, Oregon playing each other. We'll see with Florida State, right? We'll see with Texas. You've got Louisville, who is going to play Florida State. You've got Missouri, who's still got a little bit of work left. Penn State's got a little bit of work left. It could get interesting down the stretch, but I want to bring up, and this is something as we look toward next year and how important continuity is every year, but especially next year in the Southeastern Conference. Jackson Dart announces he's coming back to Ole Miss. How big is that for this Ole Miss team? Not only for momentum going into this game, not only for momentum going into the bowl game, but momentum going into next season.
I mean, it's humongous. You're only good as your quarterback, especially when you play in the SEC conference. And who's the SEC adding in that conference? Oklahoma, adding Texas. So experience of that position matters. You got to look at other positions as well. I mean, Quinshon Judkins, a sophomore. I mean, he's going to be coming back next year. You got some linemen who are coming back. I'm happy for Lane to see him get over this hill, to get over this hump, and how he handled the situations going through this year with the player, with the video, with the mental health situation. So good for Lane. I always thought Lane just had coordinator written all over him. Always thought, what's held Lane back? When it comes to 10 games, it's been the Ole Miss defense. That's what it's been. The offense has always been phenomenal. They've always had good quarterback play. Schematically, the guy can do it. We all know that. But this game's interesting to me, to be honest. Will Rogers, I mean, I'm pretty sure Greg Knox is 1-1 as an interim. Lost to Texas A&M, beat Southern Miss.
That's right. They did.
Will Rogers looked pretty good last week. And I remember a lot of what Ole Miss does on offense, they want Jackson Dart to be able to run. A lot of design quarterback runs. He gets out of the pocket, he makes plays, and he comes in this game beat up. The spread opened at 13.5. All right, it's now sitting at 10.5. Mm-hmm. So the public is buying this game down a lot. This game is at Mississippi State, and the Egg Bowl's always weird. You go back to last year, I believe Mississippi State won 24-22 in a hell of a football game. So I'm happy for Lane, but he needs to get to 10, and I don't think Mississippi State's just going to let him walk through him.
No, it's going to be interesting. We want to know what you think in the chat. Who do you think wins tonight? Ole Miss or Mississippi State? It's going to be really interesting. But let's get into some keys here.
All right, I want to rapid fire through these keys to victory, try and show every matchup a little bit of love. Let's talk about TCU sitting at 5-6 right now. Team that went to the national championship a year ago, trying to get bowl eligible. They're going to go on the road to play Oklahoma, who's 9-2, who's technically still in the running, right, for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, this game just smells like offense, right? I mean, even though TCU, you look what they lost. I mean, you feel like TCU lost every one of their good players to the Chargers. But you look around the league, they're all over the league. Even guys that may not be like household names that were at TCU, you can find them. Mercado, what he was doing coming out of nowhere in the league. We obviously know Quentin Johnson and Darius Davis and Max Duggan and those guys. But when I look at this game, the thing that concerns me, and Oklahoma gets this game at home, and you've seen this a little bit with Texas too. I just think it's ironic that it's happening in both these teams. It seems like Oklahoma somewhat regressed back to the mean on defense. I think the key for Oklahoma when you're playing this Sonny Dykes style of offense in TCU, they want to spread it around, right? You get your RPOs, things like that, is they've got to tackle in space. If Oklahoma tackles in space, Dylan Gabriel, I know, is going to play. If they're able to tackle in space, TCU's defense can't stop Oklahoma enough times to win the game. It's going to come down to really who can tackle in space. But Oklahoma, as far as I know they're still in the Big 12 championship, but getting momentum going into next year, you want to get back to that mentality of earlier in the year when we were watching Oklahoma, we're like, these guys are running around bashing people. Like you could see the Brent Venables effect, and it seems like, and I know they're still building depth, that it's kind of fallen off like they did against BYU's offensive players when I watched them last week, and we've seen this kind of happen over the course of the last 3 to 4 weeks. So you want to get back on track last weekend of the regular season, get back to being physical, get back to being fundamental, get back to tackling well, and asserting yourself and setting the tone on defense. I think that's the key, and I think they're going to do it.
Any chance for an upset?
Yeah, I believe so. If you watch Oklahoma the past couple weeks, I mean, they couldn't tackle me in space, and I tore my Achilles a month and a half ago, and it's bad, and it's getting worse. I mean, you look at this
Your leg or the? Oh, okay.
Well, no, I mean, the Oklahoma defense, I hope this is getting better. They're going to be in trouble. But you look back at some of the TCU games and their recent games, they're losing close football games. You have a 42-17 win over Baylor. We know what Baylor this year is. Post Malone, they're falling apart. 29-26 against Texas. If they play somewhat better in the first half of football, that second half they came out and won it. 35-28 against Texas Tech and 41-3 against Kansas State. We know that game. But they have guys. Hoover's a young kid. He's a freshman. He's getting better week in and week out, and that's what you want as a freshman. And Dylan Gabriel had a concussion last week. I don't know the status of Dylan. Dylan's a huge part of what
I think he's going to play.
Oklahoma does is running the ball. So how much does Oklahoma protect Dylan Gabriel in this game? That'll be a big thing. And another thing, TCU's always have one. They always got one at receiver, and that's Savion Williams. 6'5", 190 pounds. He absolutely dogged out in Texas by himself. If Hoover can get him the ball in the right situations, any one-on-one matchups, I can see TCU pulling off this upset.
Hey, let's not forget Chandler Morris got hurt again this year. Max Duggan took over for Chandler Morris, who got hurt last year, and they won 9 games that were one-score games. It's amazing how that can flip and how it can flip your season.
Iowa on the road at Nebraska. Nebraska's favored in this one, -2.5. The over-under historically low, 26.5. Just incredible. Iowa, though, 9-2. For all we say about them, the defense has been incredible. They're 9-2. Represent the West in the Big Ten championship. Nebraska 5-6 needs this one to be bowl eligible in Matt Rule's first year. They are at home. Who you taking?
In this game, this is basically a cripple fight offensively.
Cripple fight.
I got a ton of respect for what these two defenses have done. I think Tony White's one of the most underrated coordinators in the country, the defensive coordinator at Nebraska. But obviously, when you have a game where the over-under is 26.5. Hell, when I saw it at first, I thought the spread was the over-under at 2.5, and I'd still probably take the under. It's going to come down to who can make the 1 to 2 big plays, right? And when I look at this Nebraska team, I feel like at the quarterback position, you look at both teams, both quarterbacks, try and move around and do certain things, but who can make the one explosive play on offense that puts you ahead, that puts the other team behind the 8 ball, right? Neither one of these offenses are built to come back. To be honest with you, neither one of these offenses are built to do anything. The only fact that I'm calling them offenses is because those are the 11 guys that run out in the field and attempt to do it. Now, Nebraska, it's a little bit different than what we saw at the beginning of the year with Jeff Sims, who couldn't catch a snap. Now, you look at Purdy, Brock's little brother, Chuba. I just feel like the home field advantage here, Nebraska is able to score a touchdown, whether it's on a quarterback run. I think they break a big play. I think they find a way. Give me the Cornhuskers at home.
Nebraska's on the dead to me board, so I can't take them, but maybe you can, Blaine.
It's hard for me to root against a guy named Chuba. You can call him Chuba, I call him Chuba. It's really hard. Love his brother, what he's doing at the 49ers. And I'm going to kind of go out of the box here. I think this game's going to come down to special teams. Field goal kicking.
Yeah.
Who can make the most field goals? Who can win the field position? Who throws out that one fake in this game? That changes the momentum. Both these teams are anemic on offense. I think their defenses are good. I don't think they're great. I think if they play anybody worth their salt on offense, they usually get ran over. You kind of go back what Iowa did when they played Penn State. But, I can't wait not to watch this game, to be honest. But if anything, I'm taking the under and give me Nebraska.
All right, UTSA goes on the road to Tulane. Tulane 10-1, only loss Ole Miss. UTSA started 1-3. Since then, they've won 7 straight. They're 8-3. What are the keys to victory for this game?
Well, Frank Harris at the beginning of the year, you couldn't really tell who he was. It was weird. Just watching him turn the ball over. They weren't. I know they lost some guys in the transfer portal offensively, but they did bring some back, including the quarterback, which I just mentioned. But now it seems like UTSA's figured it out a little bit, and Tulane's just kind of barely scraping by. They've played some teams that they're just way more talented than, that they've been able to kind of outlast, but it doesn't seem like Tulane is playing their best ball. But with what's on the line in this game, I coached against Willie Fritz. I understand what type of motivator he is, how he can get his guys to prepare and play big in big moments. We've seen it many times, including last year against USC in the bowl game when they were able to beat him. But to me, the key to this game is which experienced quarterback makes the most plays. It's a great quarterback matchup. Frank Harris, who feel like he's been at UTSA for 35 years. Michael Pratt, he's really come on the scene the last couple years. Both guys can do things on the ground. Both guys can do things improvising outside of the pocket. which quarterback makes the big play and doesn't make the big turnover. That's going to be the key in one of the sneakiest best quarterback matchups over the weekend.
Should be a lot of fun. Now, Missouri's going to go on the road to Arkansas. This one's interesting because Missouri's sitting here 9-2. They have a chance to win 10 games in the season, which is truly incredible. Arkansas 4-7. It's been a complete disappointment in every sense of the word. But news has broken, right, that Sam Pittman is going to retain his job. You said it this week, KJ Jefferson, you just never know a week where he might just freak out and win a football game by himself. Arkansas will be at home. Can they beat Missouri?
Well, I think they can. I think the key is emotionally, where is Arkansas at? Like, are the guys still pressing, or can they finally breathe a little bit? Not just the players, just the players that are returning, but the coaches, right? We know what's gone on with Dan Enos, the offensive coordinator that was let go. Can this team use Sam Pittman being told he's coming back, getting that vote of, the dreaded vote of confidence from the athletic director? Can they parlay that and be able to play like they did at Florida offensively against a Missouri team that knows how to win? I'm not worried about Missouri emotionally. I think this all falls on Arkansas. I know who Missouri is. I know who Brady Cook is. I know who Luther Burden is. I know who Cody Schrader and Theo Weiss Jr. are. I know how they're going to prepare. They want to come down. They're used to winning. That Kansas State game, that win at home for Missouri, I think did so much mentally for them to get them over the hump. Not that Kansas State is Georgia or Kansas State's going to win the national championship, but it's kind of the first big win it feels like Missouri has had where they were close and they won it in a big game earlier in the year. I think the key is emotionally, where is Arkansas at? I think Arkansas can find a way to cover, but I like Mevis to kick another game winner.
How much fight will Arkansas show?
Some. I think look, it's not Missouri versus Arkansas. It's Missouri versus KJ Jefferson. That's what it is. That's what's been the entire year for Arkansas. I mean, Andrew Armstrong's done something, but KJ leads them in passing yards, leads them in rushing yards. Hell, I'm surprised he doesn't lead him in receiving yards. He just snaps it back and throws it as far as he can. He goes and runs it down. But this Missouri team's good. I don't understand the spread being 7.5. I mean, Brady Cook's having a phenomenal year. Under the radar type of year. I don't think enough people are talking to him. Luther Burden III is going to be an NFL day one pick. And Schrader's, I'd like seeing a good D2 back come out there and be successful. I like Missouri in this game. I like Missouri to cover in this game. And I also like the over in this game. I think you could play this game up to 10.5 if you want to for Missouri.
Hey, you know what's kind of sneaky? You know what two teams are pretty similar, especially going into next year? Look at Missouri and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Right? They're both 9-2.
Yep.
They're both returning their quarterbacks. They're both returning, in my opinion, their best skill player, right? Which I would take Luther Burden Jr. I love Cody Schrader, but I would take Luther Burden Jr.,
100%.
sophomore, who has to come back, right? Missouri and Ole Miss, this isn't just a flash in the pan thing for both these teams. I don't care who's being added to the conference, what's happening in two divisions. Both these teams are returning a decent amount, but they're returning the most important parts of what has been seemingly a breakthrough year for both places. Don't forget, last year at the end of last season, Missouri, Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach of Missouri, got a 2-year extension. And a lot of people were wondering, right, hey, is this the right move? Should we? But it seems like it's obviously worked out at 9-2. So there's a little comp there. I think there's some similarities.
All right, Texas Tech is going to go on the road to Austin to play the Texas Longhorns. So Texas is sitting here 10-1.
Yep.
Their first double-digit win season, their second double-digit win season since 2009 when they went to that national championship and played Bama. So Steve Sarkisian has clearly delivered here in just a few years in Austin. Not quite the year we were expecting from Joey McGuire and Texas Tech, but they're 6-5. They have a chance to go in and play spoiler in-state as Texas leaves the conference. What are your keys to victory?
My key to victory is pretty simple. It's how well can the Texas secondary play? That's been their biggest problem. And Texas Tech is not a team, even with Baron Morton, the backup quarterback, who's won a lot of games now, when he's been in there. He's not going to be afraid of the moment, especially going to Austin basically with nothing to lose. If you gave up that many passing yards to Iowa State and Rocco Beck, they're not exactly the Globetrotters on offense. Now, they did a great job shutting down the run. I'm not worried about Texas shutting down the run. But if Baron Morton and them can have time to throw the ball and they have guys open in space, this is going to be a game. It's going to be a very high-scoring game, in my opinion. But if Texas in the secondary, a little bit similar to Oklahoma, but Oklahoma to me is kind of an all-encompassing thing, not just in the secondary. If Texas plays well in the secondary, and not saying you shut them out, not saying you do what L'Jarius Sneed did to A.J. Brown, right, on Monday Night Football. That's a little nod to you. Congrats on making the fantasy playoffs. He was up 10. You see that, and A.J. Brown had what, one point?
Hey, thank you for the vibes in your house.
Yeah, of course. He blamed him not making the playoffs on my house in fantasy.
You have to understand the situation. have to understand, look, I hit a lot of bets over there. I hit the biggest bets of my life.
Yeah.
Over
We're not talking about bets. We're talking about fantasy.
But when I come over there for fantasy, okay, the times I came over there, Mark Andrews got hurt on the first drive. The next time I came over there, Kenneth Walker got hurt on the first drive. So I was like, Jake, I have to deem your house as fantasy hell. That's what it is. Betting phenomenal, but then against all odds, all right? I walked into it like I didn't have a chance, Dave. I knew I was done.
I could see it in his face.
Knew I was done. There's no way. First quarter, nothing.
Yeah.
Halfway through the second quarter, caught one pass. Then second half, about 5 minutes left, they threw a deep ball to him in the end zone.
Yeah, he misjudged.
Dropped it, all right? He had 1.8. He hadn't scored less than 13 the entire year. He had 1.8. So Jake's house.
You're welcome.
Free!
Welcome to the Oaks, dog.
Yeah, baby.
Hey, but
It's a shame you couldn't go watch the Bills and the Bengals play at his house last year.
I know, right?
I'll never forgive. I'll
Yeah.
never
It's okay.
Talk about the dead to me word. That gives it a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
I will say, though, key to victory, Texas in the secondary. I think they show up. I think Texas, it's kind of like on, with Will Ferrell and Jason Sudeikis, the campaign. You know, am I maintaining? That's what it feels like with Texas. I don't think they're playing their best ball right now.
But they're still 10-1. If they win this one, they'll be 11-1 with your only loss on a final drive, last-second touchdown pass by Dylan Gabriel to Nick Anderson in the Red River Shootout. That's your only loss, and you get a chance to go to the Big 12 championship, maybe avenge that loss or beat some other team twice in the same season.
And I'll continue to say it, if they're 12-1 and Bama is 12-1 at the end of the year and they're fighting for that last spot, Texas deserves it.
Boo!
Yep. All right, the last one for Friday night's games.
Yep.
Oregon State going to go on the road to Oregon. Also 10-1. Also their only loss and a gut-wrenching 3-point loss to a rival at Washington on the road. Oregon State 8-3 right now. They have a chance to sort of play spoiler in state there before Oregon also leaves the conference and goes to the Big Ten. What are your keys to victory here?
Well, you know, if you're Oregon State, it's finding a way to run the ball against this Oregon team. I mean, like I said earlier in the week, every time I wipe my eyes, it looks like Dan Lanning's building more and more of an SEC team out west that's going to end up going to the Big Ten. But if you're Oregon, it's just continuing to be yourself, right? Don't try and do too much for Bo Nix, right, in this game. That Washington game is going to have a lot to do with the Heisman because I think it's going to come down to Jaden Daniels and whoever performs the best in the Pac-12 championship game. That's what I think is between Washington and Oregon. I just don't think you go out there and get cute. I don't think you let Oregon State hang around. I've got a lot of respect, right, for what Jonathan Smith is doing out there. You look at DJU, I think he's a better fit out there, but I still don't trust him to be able to make the routine throws routine, just like Joe Milton. And I don't think Oregon State's going to be able to run the ball successfully enough to open up the play-action game. But if you're Oregon, don't get cute. Dan, don't make the most drastic decision on every fourth down or every time after you score. You don't have to look down and say, hey, we're on top of the building, let's aim for the bushes. How about you just walk your ass back to the elevator and you'll be alive when you walk out the bottom.
Minus 13.5, over under 62.5. How you feel about Oregon?
You got to love Oregon in this game. And look, styles make fights. That's what it does. And Oregon State had the better style to play against a team like Washington, whose defense front seven is good. It's a she-wolf. It's a strawberry bear. It's okay. Right, it's okay. But Oregon's a complete football team. And you watch it play in and out. I mean, you have a Bo Nix who's in his 11th year in college football, who's absolutely playing phenomenal. He's on point. I don't think I've seen anybody tackle Bucky Irvin the entire season. Mm-hmm. Just the first guy that gets to him. And then you have Franklin, who's going to be an NFL receiver. He's an absolute tree. But the thing about it, Dan Lanning, you hit it completely on the head. You look at Oregon's front seven. Not in the first, but look at the guys they're running on and off the field throughout the game. That's tough to beat. Oregon State wants to run the football. I mean, you have over 150. I like the Martinez kid for Oregon State. He's going to be a good NFL back, I think. DJU has to play better. All right, you can't have no passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions against a team like Oregon, or they're going to walk you out of the stadium.
We have 3 really cool NFL games today on Thursday. I'm going to save those until after Chris Marler comes in. We can talk about the keys to victory for those a little bit. I'm going to dip into Saturday. Number 2, the Buckeyes go on the road to the Big House to play the Michigan Wolverines. The second straight year we'll get an undefeated matchup between these two teams. That's the first time that's happened in history, back-to-back years. And then 3 straight years of a top 5 matchup. This game once again has national implications with the college football playoff and, of course, the Big Ten championship. Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's coach, will not be on the sidelines for this, but what are your keys to victory?
My key to victory is, will Kyle McCord make the big mistake that seals it for Michigan? I think the recipe for Ohio State has kind of been the recipe for what Michigan has done the last couple of years against Ohio State, or especially 2 years ago. You just hang around and hang around and hang around and give yourself a chance at the end on the road to be able to win the game. But if Kyle McCord goes out there, and we've watched them kind of protect him a little bit at times, not nearly the way that Penn State's protected Drew Aller. It's almost criminal what they did to Drew the first 6 or 7 games of the year by not allowing him to make the early mistakes you need while winning to be able to have confidence late. I just think that Kyle McCord, if you try and force one in this game, because do not forget, he forced one to Notre Dame late in that game that they dropped that hit him right in the hands that would have sealed the deal. I feel like there's going to be a late turnover by Kyle McCord that seals this victory for Michigan. So the key is, can Kyle McCord play well enough to hang around in the game? Will they call plays aggressive enough to be able to hang around in the game? Because I do think Michigan will be able to put the ball in the end zone a couple times with what they're doing. The key is Kyle McCord keeping him in it.
All right, Blaine, this is a matchup between the top 2 defenses in the country. You know, Jim Knowles, the DC for the Buckeyes, has clearly elevated that side of the football over the course of the last year. Obviously, we know Michigan wants to run the ball, right? They want to run to pass. But you and I have been watching J.J. McCarthy and a lot of the throws that he's made these past couple weeks, and something has been off, right? Like, they're not using him in the run game quite as much, which I think that's just trying to save him for this game, like Jake and I talked about earlier this week. But he is missing throws down the field, which was surprising to you and me. Are we going to get the J.J. McCarthy in this game for the past few weeks, or are we going to get the J.J. McCarthy from this game a year ago when he threw 3 touchdowns? And really, when the Buckeyes forced him to beat him and shut down the run game, he did go beat him.
Well, you got to feel like, and you've seen this, that JJ, I mean, even the last couple of weeks, he shows up in the biggest moments and he performs. I mean, you go back to that TCU game, you go back to the Ohio State game, but he shows up and makes plays. And it's going to be interesting for both sides of these football, because I look on the offense for Ohio State, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting my best player in the best situation possible as many times as I can, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr., right? If they do double him, you do have Mbuka, who's going to be an NFL player one day, that can counter off that. But we talk about this all the time. Sometimes these games come down to the guys, we don't talk about it enough. And what's kind of the hardest guy to guard if you're a defensive coach?
Tight end.
It's a tight end, right? And you look at what Ohio State has. And they have Stover, and he's a great player. He can block. He's finessing in his route. His bag is deep. You also have Colston Loveland, who plays phenomenal for this Michigan football team. Those guys give mismatches to each defense, all right? So who can take control of the mismatch the best? Both teams want to establish the line of scrimmage. Obviously, Michigan wants to stay on schedule. Ohio State wants to stay on schedule. But if Ohio State, I'm playing to my best, which is my receivers and my tight end. Henderson's a good piece. And if I'm Michigan, you have to win the line of scrimmage.
I do want to make this point, too. One way that you can take a little bit of pressure off Marvin Harrison Jr. is if you're able to run the ball well. It's hard to double guys when you're having to bring safeties down and they're having to come downhill to help stop the run or help save that big run that you're getting gashed.
Traditionally, they do. Ezekiel Elliott, Beanie Wells, like KJ
like
Dobbins.
This year, I don't know. It's going to be tough sledding in there this year. If anything, you need to work backwards.
It's not as much a part of their identity as it has been in years past. The most interesting thing for me is, when does Sharon Moore decide to pass? That's the thing. He's having to be the head coach right now and the OC and the offensive line coach. Does he come in with some sort of ego that he wants to bully them and really stick to this run game? We saw him not throw a pass in the second half of that game against Penn State. How much of that was because of Drew Aller on the other side? How much of that was because of some of the weather elements? How much of that was ego with him saying, I just want to pound them and beat them? J.J. McCarthy's QBR has not been as high when Sharon Moore has to be the head coach and the OC and the offensive line coach. I'm really interested to see, because a lot of the success they had in the first half against Penn State was when Sharon Moore decided to pitch backwards and he called passing plays on first down rather than running on the first 2 downs, which Penn State defense shut down, and then having to throw on.
Y'all had big third down runs.
Huge.
In that game. Third and long runs, right? And that's another question. How much are we going to see JJ in quarterback design runs?
I think
if there's ever the week.
It's the Bourbon Bowl, man.
Yeah.
It's the Bourbon Bowl. You can't hold anything back. But speaking about pass, if you're a sports gambler, we can offer you cannot pass on DraftKings Sportsbook. You need to download the app right now. Use our code BOOSTER, BOOSTER, because new customers can bet $5 on the NFL Thanksgiving action. That's today, to score $150 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code BOOSTER, BOOSTER. Remember, with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. But speaking about crown, a guy who wears one and he loves to drink it, our buddy from Saturday Down South, Chris Marler. Chris, what's up, dog?
Hey, listen, I'm currently dog sitting for my parents right now, and there's so much crown in this house. because they're
Really?
in 3 weeks.
Oh
my God! I've got a lot to replace when stepdad gets back. I'll say that.
Hey, well, I'll tell you, my wife actually made it out to give Crown any free ads here. Blaine was over the other day. My wife made herself a drink the other day. I took a sip of it. It was pretty good. It was champagne. It was caramel,
and
Crown,
apple cider.
And apple cider.
Really?
I guess 2 out of the 3. I was pretty.
Yeah.
I was
pretty good. It was actually dangerous.
Kinda
It tasted too good. What did you say, Blaine? You drink 2 of them, and what happens?
I mean, you just wake up on hole number 7 and you're naked on the green.
Yeah, we've all been there.
I bet you made that putt, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Well, Chris, we know you don't golf, or you know, but you'd still find your way probably to hole number 7. Chris, Iron Bowl.
Yeah, let's hear this take, Chris.
We talked about it Tuesday.
Hell of an intro.
Yeah, we're all fans of somebody, and obviously, you know, we're from Auburn, and you know, you're obviously a fan of Alabama, even though you do spit it straight, and that's one of the many reasons I respect you. But when you look at this game, is there any not outside of it just being another Alabama game, but you know how this game is, especially at Jordan-Hare. Is there that sliver of Chris Marler right now that may be a little bit nervy, that it could be wonky, especially after seeing the loss to New Mexico State? Because I don't think that helped Alabama at all. Obviously, it didn't help Auburn optically.
No, it's hilarious that it happened. It's hilarious that it happened. And I think Bama fans would all agree. It was like, I mean, it wasn't like they lost in Mexico State because they had 3 turnovers or fumbled a punt inside their 10 or whatever. It was like, you just got straight up beat. You just got flat out beat by New Mexico State, who's not a bad football team, by the way. There is no part of me that thinks that Bama covers the 14.5 points or beats New Mexico State by 21 or whatever. That's just not how this rivalry works. I think what that game said to me more than anything was Hugh Freeze spent the last week probably getting ahead of the skis a little bit and preparing for the Bama game, probably more than he should have. But I think, I will say this. This Bama team is been so hard to figure out for Vegas specifically. When you look at some of the lines they've come out with, right? The last one being Kentucky, they were a 10-point favorite on the road. They won by 28. There's been 6 of the 10 games they've played in, or 6 of the 9 games that they've had an actual line in from Vegas. They have been wrong by a minimum 7 points or more in the actual outcome. They were a 7-point favorite against Texas. They lost by 10. This goes on and on. That 14.5 points, I was excited when I saw it because it was way more than I thought it would be. But I think this is if you're Auburn, you better hope that you get something along the lines of what you had against Georgia, which is Peyton Thorne gets a broken play, 70-yard run early on. And the way this has to play out for Auburn, in my opinion, is not like 2010. It's not like 2013. It's not like 2019 or anything like that. 2009 is how this has to play out for Auburn for them to win the game. And that is, you come out with nothing to lose. You run the annexation of Puerto Rico, the double oopty-doop, reverse pass like Gus Malzahn did, the onside kick, get them down early, because that's still something we've seen them overcome second half, or first half, what do you call it? What's the word I'm trying to look for? Someone help me out. David, you're a Michigan man. What's the word I'm looking for? Deficits.
Deficits?
Yeah.
It's deficits.
They've overcome
I think you're looking for
deficits. That, but I don't know if they can do it on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I look at this game, if you're Auburn, you've got to find a way to stop Alabama running the ball, make them somewhat one-dimensional. And I don't know if you can stop Jalen Milroe. Even when Alabama's been one-dimensional, Jalen Milroe's found a way to make plays even down the field. And now that they finally tailored the game plan and the play calling to what he does best, that Alabama offense has absolutely blossomed. But I mean, David, you know as well as I do about these rivalry games. It can get really nuts really quickly.
It's the Bourbon Bowl. You can't hold anything back, Chris. Now, Auburn and Alabama can't look ahead to next week, right? They have to be focused on one of the greatest rivalries in the history of college football. But we can look ahead because Alabama and Georgia are already slated to play for the SEC championship game. DraftKings, as we speak, has that line at -4 Georgia and the over-under at 56. Is that line right?
No, but again, they've been so wrong about Bama. I would have guessed this would have been a 6 to 7 point line. But if you gave me 10 in favor of Georgia, I would take that. And I honestly, I think part of this is me operating out of fear as a Bama fan, because I just think that it's almost seems too good to believe sometimes about how good they've looked, and they were able to hang with LSU and then pull away from that offense, get some stops. they're playing really well. But as a Bama fan, each week you've gotten to watch this Bama team. Like the past couple weeks with the 12 o'clock start, like hazing the barn early for that day. And you're like, man, we're getting better every week, Let's go see what Georgia's doing. Hopefully they're going to regress even the slightest. And it's like, nope, we just took a top 25 team and just beat the brakes off them for 60 minutes and did whatever we wanted to. Like this team they are excelling and peaking like they do every year under Kirby at the right time. It's almost like it's like the first half of the season is practice. And then he gets to like that bye week before Florida. And it's like, pedal to the metal. Carson Beck looks like a top 10 pick right now. Like everything he's doing, the way he's getting the ball out, the velocity he's throwing with, and like every week it's someone new. Brock Bowers is the mainstay. Those running backs are getting better each week. Carson Beck's been great, but Dylan Bell has 3 touchdowns last week. Like it just seems like and they still have Lad McConkey in their back pocket. Georgia's terrifying. They're terrifying.
Yeah, you say that. It feels like it'll play closer than that, but Georgia also the last couple of weeks, like the word that has come to mind is unbeatable. But like it's funny you say it because when I saw the line for Michigan come out about the same, was -3.5, -4, something like that. It was the first time since I've been affiliated with this rivalry that Michigan was favored in the game. Like even the past 2 years, the Buckeyes were favored in that game. So it is odd to see, and I mean that's one of the great things about rivalry matchups that we'll get.
Without a doubt, and I think Blaine said it best the other day. Georgia struggled in that first possession defensively. Probably just because they want to feel something.
Oh, yeah.
Right, you let Tennessee score on the first play.
Yeah, they're bored.
Florida did the same.
They're bored.
Yeah, then they just pick you up and they just start just ripping your limbs off and throwing them all over the field for those. You said Tennessee had a 71-yard run on the first play. And at halftime, they had 57 total yards.
2 minutes before halftime. That's what the stat was.
That's sick. That is psychotic behavior.
Well, Chris, we kind of knocked on it earlier. I want to get your thoughts. What's your thoughts on the Ohio State-Michigan game? We have a Michigan man over here to my left. The Ohio State University versus Michigan. Well, what do you think?
Like I have a newfound respect for Michigan over the past couple of weeks, mainly because Dave came on the show and talked some sense to me a little bit. I will tell you this, and I think I heard you guys talk about this before I came on the actual show. When is Sharon like going to actually start throwing the ball? Like you're not going to beat Ohio State by just running the football. That may sound stupid because they seemingly did it last year and they ran through them, but I just don't think that people don't understand it, like from like a casual and a national standpoint about Ohio State. This is a very, very good defensive team. It is a very, very good defensive team. We just have this stigma in our head, like, oh, it's Ohio State. It's all offense. They've got all these great receivers. They got a quarterback that can distribute the football, blah, blah, blah. This is a defense-first football team. I think we talk about the strengths of the team. And I think that it's going to be a really good game. Like whatever the under is, I don't think it's going to be like an Iowa game by any means, but I think the under is probably the play. It's going to be this is the closest you will see to a mid-2000s, maybe early 2010s, SEC just war for 60 minutes of physical big boy football. I mean, listen, earmuff it, David. I like you a lot. I do. I just cannot pull for Michigan. And that's saying something because I hate Ohio State. But I do think it'll be a close game. I just think Ohio State is also playing very, very well.
They are.
And Michigan has I just don't know if the coach knows how to win without Harbaugh on the sidelines, because you cannot go into this game and run the football 60 times.
I think his absence will be significant. I do agree with you on that. The over-under is 46 right now, which is funny because Jake and I were talking earlier this week. I mean, the over got blown out the last 2 years, and you think like you have the top two defenses in the nation playing each other. Sometimes you go the opposite way on that and just think, hey, they're unleashing and haven't shown things all year. Maybe you take the over.
Well, I guarantee you Jim Knowles' ass ain't going to be playing a lot of cover zero in this game like he was last week, and that's what our last year against Michigan, and they cost him a couple big plays. You know, Cornelius made the big play. To Chris's point, he's exactly right. One of the things we were talking about before the season, one of the biggest questions about Ohio State was they had to replace their quarterback, their center, and both tackles, but they basically returned everybody on defense from a team last year that was still really good on defense. That's why I'm so intrigued in this game, and I mentioned this multiple times. J.J. McCarthy has the unteachable intangible, which is experience. How much does Ryan Day let Kyle McCord rip this thing on the road in 30-degree weather? You got Marvin, or how much of it's quick screen stuff and now stuff and quick intermediate stuff? These drives I don't think we're going to get a lot of big plays in this game. I think these are going to have to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 play drives where you're having to grind it down there, because I don't think Ryan Day is going to go in there and say, all right, you know what? Take the leash off Kyle McCord. It's bombs over Baghdad. We're letting this thing fly. When you have healthy backs now, and it seems like, you know, you're able to run the ball at a rate where you feel comfortable with, to set up play action to maybe protect him a little bit in the pocket as well. That's what I find intriguing, Chris.
No, I think it's a good point. I think it does kind of feel like one of those, and I'm older than you guys, I'm pretty sure. But like, you know, I think that the late 90s, early 2000s games is what this reminds me of the most, which is like, okay, like the score is going to be some dumbass Big Ten like prime number score. It'll be like 13-9 for like 3.5 quarters. And then somebody will hit a big play. Like, it does feel like it's like one of those things where it's like one big play is going to be what we remember this game by, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is going to be a very, very good game. I think it's going to be a really evenly matched game where it's like not too like contrasting styles like we've seen in the past, where it's like Michigan wants to run the football, but Ohio State can show that's what they've done too, right? Like, I mean, Trevor Henderson had an incredible game last week. Yeah. I understand the competition's a little bit different, but I think it's going to be a really, really good game. I'll tell you one thing to look out for is which coach on the sideline breaks first. Like, because Ryan Day is an emotional dude.
Yeah, he is.
I've seen that at times on the sidelines. Like, if this moment, I'm not saying it's too big for him, but if he lets his emotions get the best of him and he can't sit there and like, this is a marathon, not a sprint type game, I wonder if that would play into Michigan's hand pretty well.
You say that, but I watched Urban Meyer almost have a stroke every single third down for multiple years, and Michigan never.
Well, here's the thing, though. This game, think about it. Ryan Day, if you lose this one, and you brought this point up, you lost to an interim coach.
Oh, it's going to be a bad look.
Like, your third loss in a row to Michigan is against an interim coach, right? You let little brother beat you in the driveway. Oh, okay, like for the first time in front of God and everybody while your parents are filming it and your girlfriend's there watching. But, Chris, I do got to ask you this. LSU and A&M right now, there's obviously no repercussions in this game from a championship standpoint, but from a Heisman standpoint, when you look at it, right, I think it's going to come down to Jaden Daniels and whoever plays better in the Pac-12 championship game between Penix and Bo Nix. Do you look at the Heisman as the best player in college football, or that has the stats to back it up, or the best player on one of the best teams in college football that has Heisman moments? How do you look at it?
Whatever that is so stupid to me. Like we've lost, this whole thing is so far out of control. And it started, in my opinion, in 2018. And I'll be biased here. You can say this is biased, but Tua Tagovailoa was the best player in the country that year by a long shot, and he was for the entire season. He threw for 5 touchdowns in the game against Auburn a week before the SEC championship game. Goes and plays the top 5 defense, gets hurt. Daniel still wins that game. All of a sudden, Kyler Murray, who's been putting up the same stats all year, he's the Heisman. Like, this is such a "what have you done for me lately" award. It is like, forget about September and forget about October. We don't care about any of that stuff, like, when it comes to this award anymore. And I think all that flew out the window with Lamar Jackson. Like, Jaden Daniels is the best player in the country, in my opinion.
Agreed.
It's not a situation of, and it's not even close, like people love to say on Twitter, because it is close. Because Bo Nix is putting up ridiculous numbers. And Michael Penix, even though he is on an undefeated team and also has a lot of the stats, he's a top 3 guy. I don't think that he's on the same tier right now as those two. But like, you can see, this whole thing is such a joke. And sports writers and sports media, it's gotten so far out of control. Like, it jumped the shark a couple of years ago when Aiden Hutchinson, no offense, he got invited. He wasn't even the best player at his position, and like statistically or from a skill standpoint. So I think that whole part is like when the whole Heisman thing has kind of gone way, way too far and needs to be corrected a little bit. I think that Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix are the best 2 players in the country deserving of the Heisman right now. I think that shouldn't change dramatically no matter what happens over the next 2 or 3 weeks. But I do think that Bo Nix has a leg up no matter what happens, because if they win against Washington, which I think they will, you can just give him the Heisman right then. Like, I mean, he can throw for 2 touchdowns.
I don't know.
Pick in that game, and he will still he willed his team to victory, and they needed it most.
If he makes a big play at the end to win the game and send them to the playoff, I do think it's not just do you have a Heisman moment? It's who had the last Heisman moment or the most important Heisman moment. Even if I do think it is kind of a recency bias situation. I do agree with that, Chris.
Well, the one thing I think would be unfair, and I'm not saying he hasn't had a great season, But to me, this is clearly a two-person race, and it's how they played the whole year. And that's Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels.
I agree with that.
If Michael Penix gets the Heisman because they win that game, like that in the Pac-12 championship, that to me seems like that's where we're like, okay, like we should have seen it coming, but it's like I don't think that we're doing the award necessarily a service unless they only won that game because of him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
yes, they could. And look, he led the nation in passing a year ago, and he would be a deserving, he would be a deserving winner in a lot of years where Jaden Daniels isn't just having the sort of year that he's having right now. And I don't think the losses should count against Jaden Daniels, but the extra week that the conference championship players get is certainly something that you have to consider, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And then you think, obviously, Jaden Daniels got knocked out of the Alabama game. And I think we got robbed of what could have been a great finish. Not saying LSU would have won that game, but I just thought it would have been a hell of a finish with the way that game was going. But we're with Chris Marler Saturday Down South. You can catch him. It does an unbelievable show on Saturday Football Uncensored. I'm going to let him plug that here at the end. But you brought up a point. My last question for you, Chris. You talk about the importance of not forgetting September. You got a 12-1 Texas, 12-1 Alabama fighting over the fourth spot. Obviously, we know fandom. Where does Chris Marler, that not the football purist, where does he land on this?
I hate this question.
I know. When you said September matters, it just came to me in a dream.
Here's what you're making me do in terms of I'm going to try to be as objective as possible because to me, the answer is Texas. They're 12-1, and they beat Bama on the road by 10 plus points, and that has to count for something.
I agree with that.
I will guarantee you, if you call me or text me minutes after, especially right after Bama beats Georgia, and like with everything that I've had to hear, especially from Georgia fans, and this incredible streak they're on, much deserved love, all that stuff. If Nick Saban goes out there and beats Kirby like he's done in dramatic fashion for the fifth time in 6 games, and Bama beats his number 1 team, 2-time national champ, you're not going to get a lot of objectivity out of me from 8 p.m. Saturday night until 12 o'clock the next day when they make
that, my brother.
Now, when I'm sober and happy, that Texas should go in over Bama.
Hey, definitely. Well, we know that crown will definitely be gone at the house. But Chris, man, you're a great sport. We love having you on. You guys do a fantastic job, brother. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Tell everybody where they can find your work because it's really good stuff. Yeah, real quick, man. Thanksgiving is my favorite week of the year, and I just want to say thankful. Like I know I give Blaine a lot of crap, and we all give each other a lot of crap on social media. Very grateful for you guys having me on all year, and very thankful to have you guys as friends in real life, not just online. But yeah, Saturday Football Uncensored is the podcast. New episodes every Wednesday night, and then we have a live show on Sunday as well. And then Vern Funquist, follow at your own peril. And just I always say, like, fun in moderation. I'm fun in moderation on social media. You'll enjoy it for a minute and then probably block me afterwards. So there you go. Well, Chris, we're thankful for you, man, for coming on here and giving us your time. I know you're busy like we are. And again, ditto to everything you said, brother. And be safe this week. And look forward to talking it. Look, it's not done. It may be last week of the regular season, but we sure as hell
have a great Thanksgiving.
One could say it's just the beginning.
Yeah, one could say that.
Roll Tide.
Chris Marler, all right, get him off the air. No, I'm kidding. Chris Marler, our good buddy over there, does a fantastic job. Always great to catch up.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, NFL, Packers, Lions. Lions 8-2 right now.
God, if you watch that Bears game,
Packers 4-6, but Jordan Love did play well. Did play good last week.
God, the Chargers.
Who you taking in this one, man?
I tell you what, this is going to be the first Thanksgiving that I can remember where the Lions are good.
They are good.
I can't remember the last. They said the last time the Lions were 8-2, JFK was president.
Wow.
Which is insane. And remember, that game they were playing the Bears, did you get maybe a little bit overlooking on having to come now on a short week and playing this big rivalry game against the Packers at home there in Ford, which I believe it is, the Lions are at home, correct?
Yes.
I like Detroit tonight because I like Dan Campbell, right? I don't trust Jordan Love going, and I know the Lions didn't play great against the Bears. Justin Fields was coming back. There was a lot going on. But when I look at this game, I think the Lions find ways to win, regardless when they play good and they play bad. They didn't play great for a while against the Bears. They were able to come back from a 12-point deficit in the last 4.5 minutes of that game this past weekend. I think Jordan Love just makes too many mistakes. Aaron Jones is beat up as well. Jared Goff, a.k.a. the gumball smuggler, with all the weapons that he has at home, all the momentum. It's Thanksgiving. Give me the Lions to roar, baby.
Blaine, the Lions had no answer for the Ravens on the road. They just got beat from the jump, ended up being 38-6. Since then, they've won their last 3, and this is a divisional matchup against the Packers where the Lions are favored.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to the Packers. Big win against the Chargers. Big win. I think Jordan played good. You had a couple of rookies. Jade Reed played phenomenal, who kind of showing up. But you are banged up. Not only is Aaron Jones banged up, but A.J. Dillon's also banged up with a hamstring, and he'll be questionable as well. But if you look at the Lions, man, your running game's coming along, right? Montgomery's got back. He's back healthy. Looked phenomenal the week before that.
It's a great 1-2 punch.
Jahmyr Gibbs, is an every down type of back, which is great. And you're seeing J-Mo come along a little bit, the receiver position, too. Jared Goff had 3 interceptions against the Bears, and there weren't like tip balls or anything like that. They were straight at defenders, but they did somehow come back and win that football game. That's just a Dan Campbell coach team who never gives up. I like the Lions in this game. I don't think Jared Goff has the same performance. I think Amon-Ra, the Sun God, has another great day. I think Montgomery's going to have a big day out of the back. The Green Bay defense is good. It is good, especially their front seven, a bunch of Georgia and Bama guys up there. So give me the Lions, but I do think the Packers cover.
I'm starting to like that Jahmyr Gibbs pick at 12 more.
Yeah.
And more.
Phenomenal,
Yep, man. He's fast. He's a good player. All right, a classic NFC East matchup for Thanksgiving. The Dallas Cowboys hosting the Washington Commanders. Cowboys won 5 of their last 7, I believe, with their only losses on the road at 49ers and Eagles, the 2 best teams in the NFL. Cowboys have been cruising. You like them here?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the Commanders are so schizophrenic. I mean, how you lose that game to the Giants at home. Tommy DeVito out there dropping the gabagoo on him and then going home to his parents' house with his Ninja Turtle blanket and eating Hot Pockets and playing Call of Duty.
Juice.
You would know, Turtle. You're from there. Fist
Just
pumping
sleeps
on
in
the
his
beach,
Lightning
babe.
McQueen bed.
But at the end of the day, Sam Howell has had a really good year.
Yeah.
I think Sam Howell is one of the most underrated quarterbacks
3,000
in the
yards.
NFL. Definitely, he's tough, right? He can run, but it seems like CeeDee Lamb is very involved now. It seems like Pollard's going. It seems like the Cowboys are getting healthier. I just think they're too much for the Commanders at home. Chase Young now gone. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers to add to the Mega Ranger that is there. Give me the Cowboys rolling at home.
CeeDee Lamb already over 1,000 yards receiving, Blaine, through 10 games.
He's
this line's
good.
minus 10.5 as we sit here right now recording this, and the over-under at 48.5.
Well, CeeDee Lamb is questionable walking into this game, so that's going to be huge. You'll see that spread change a lot if CeeDee Lamb's not playing because you see Dak and CeeDee are starting to get on the same page. All right, it's like Bill Nye, the science guy in chemistry. If you start getting that chem going right, they're dangerous. I mean, the Dallas defense, their front seven's one of the best in the NFL. To watch Michael Parsons crawl around on all fours, then you have Lawrence on the other side, and you have 2 good pieces. Your secondary, you have one player with 5 pick sixes in 1 year.
Yeah.
That is unheard
That's
of. And I think Diggs, their all-pro corner, is out with an ACL.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this lands on Dak. I think the Commanders found their forever quarterback. I'm getting on one knee and seeing if you're taking that ring. If you're Commanders and that's Sam Howell, we knew that when he was coming out of North Carolina. He throws one of the prettiest balls we've seen and has great arm strength. You have Brian Robinson Jr., the man, he's basically 50 Cent. He got shot 9 times and still running out to many men. And you have McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, a couple good pieces too. I like the Cowboys in this game. I got to see if CD plays or not. That's going to be big for the spread. But I do think 10.5 is a lot. I think it's a lot. I think Sam Howell will be able to find some holes in this secondary. So I do think the Commanders cover.
All right, last one. One of the best divisional matchups we get in the NFL is coming out of the NFC West here when the Seattle Seahawks host the 49ers here.
Man.
Now, 49ers lost 3 in a row against the Browns, Vikings, and Bengals when they were a little bit banged up. They've won the last 2 since then on the road at the Jaguars, 34-3, and then against the Buccaneers last weekend. How you like this one?
Mate, you know, Geno Smith got knocked out of last week's game. Tough loss against the Rams on the road. Lost by 1, a late field goal in the game. I still feel like the Seahawks could have won. You know, we're checking on Geno's health. But this Niners team, it just seems like, you know, you brought up the health, them getting back. It's nice to see Debo running around out there and looking healthy. Brandon Ayuk's playing at a really high level. We know who George Kittle is. We know who McCaffrey is. At the end of the day, I love Pete Carroll. I love the physical brand of ball that the Seahawks have gotten back to. But it seems like even on the road, going on the road, the Niners have a ton of momentum right now. They just have too many pieces. And listen, I love Tyler Lockett. I think Tyler Lockett, he's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Obviously, we know DK Metcalf's a monster. Kenneth Walker got that oblique injury, right? Which, you know, Charbonnet's a good back. Still hasn't scored a touchdown yet in his NFL career, which is weird to think about.
I didn't know
the type
that.
of bruising style of back he is. But I just think the Niners, again, with Brock Purdy, with the experience he has, with what they have, they need to start playing well again as we get into the later version of this year's NFL season, whatever's on the script for them. They added Chase Young to that defense with Bosa and the rest of the aliens they've got running around. I think this game's going to be close. Even if Geno Smith doesn't play, I think it's going to be closer than what people think, but give me the Niners to win it.
Weird loss last week at the Rams. You know, Geno goes out, Drew Lock comes in, they end up losing 17-16. Now you're going to play the 49ers.
I mean, not only did you lose Geno, but you lost Kenneth Walker after the first drive in that game.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Walker, him and Charbonnet has been splitting it up a little bit. I think Charbonnet comes in for mostly thirds down. He's good out of the backfield and great in pass pro, picking up linebackers. But the one thing we're kind of not talking about, which is huge for this 49ers team, is Hufanga, who tore his ACL.
Yeah,
who's an all-pro safety for them. Who's an absolute savage. He
does
done
everything
for the year. All right? And the secondary was somewhat of the weak spot in this 49ers defense, and it didn't get any better after that happened. So if Geno Smith doesn't play, Drew Lock's a great piece. Shout out Drink. I love what they do down there in Missouri. But that's going to be a huge loss for them. I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to be out here in this game. Pete Carroll did call this injury legit during that game on Sunday last week. Brandon Ayuk, huge week. You can't single cover the man. You're going to have to double him. Trent Williams getting healthy. Deebo Samuel getting healthy. And what's more scary than a pissed-off Brock Purdy? Right? I like the 49ers this game. I think the 49ers are starting to build into that championship team. I like them to cover as well.
You believe in Drew Lock?
No, not enough to beat the 49ers.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm saying you need Geno in this game if you think you're going to beat the 49ers. Drew's not good enough in the pocket. He's not like Geno in the pocket. Geno can extend. Geno knows what he's looking at. Drew's not there yet.
Yeah, well, the more I look at Drew Lock, I just see a slower Zach Wilson.
Well, speaking about him, one bonus matchup for Friday, the Dolphins go on the road to play the Jets, who just benched Zach Wilson.
Yeah, look, at the Jets, it's just, again, you were just trying to hold on until Aaron Rodgers came back. You look at the Dolphins, again, you want to talk about weapons. We were just talking about on the 49ers. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I can go through the list. Mostert, who I don't think gets enough credit with the way he plays. Achane getting hurt again. That's unfortunate for the Dolphins with him coming back. But the Jets, you just can't score. Like, you can sit here and play great defense against the Dolphins, hold the Dolphins to 13 points, and I think the Dolphins' defense is good enough to stop Tim Boyle, who sounds like the potions teacher from Harry Potter.
That is what he sounds like. Minus 9.5 on the line right now. It could change, but over.
Tyreek Hill, a little bit banged up. I think he did something to his hand. You're playing against the Hawaiian Drake now, if you haven't seen that with his new hair.
Yeah,
Kiki,
GTA.
Can you hear me? Right? So, you got to like the Dolphins in this game. If you're the Jets defense, look, you can only stop them for so long. You can only guard Tyreek Hill for so long, and Jalen Waddle and all these guys. But I tell you what, Jalen Ramsey looked pretty damn good last week.
Yeah, he did.
A couple picks.
Made a big play.
He landed on the ball in that last interception.
Right.
I'm telling you, the best duo corner in the NFL is Zay Howard and Jalen Ramsey. If you're a quarterback down.
Well, you can move Jalen Ramsey around, too. You can put Jalen Ramsey at safety. You can put Jalen Ramsey at nickel. That's one of his biggest strengths. But appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We got Steve Dace as our guest picker. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State this weekend. Been hot on those picks lately. We appreciate you guys joining us. Enjoy the turkey. And like the plate, I'm going to be getting in about 3 hours. We're going. Gone.